Good afternoon, everybody. It is Angie Atkinson, and I'm here with the lovely and talented Dana for our usual Tuesday hangout with everybody. And today we're talking about a really interesting topic. Dana, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you as always.
As always, my pleasure. So you brought up this amazing idea to talk about the Fyre Festival, which for those who don't know, because I was only semi-familiar with the concept, was a luxury music festival created with the intent of promoting the Fyre music booking app. And it was scheduled to take place last year from April 28th to May 30th. And it was promoted as a big social media event. Kendall Jenner was involved, a whole bunch of other people. And Dana actually caught the documentary on Netflix. Yeah. And tell us, just fill us in.
Okay. So this documentary, the Fyre Festival, it was billed as this kind of, high-end getaway with a bunch of different social media influencers. And it was supposed to just be this really kind of sexy, fun, hedonistic type party. And it ended up being a total train wreck. And so what's so interesting about the documentary is there's so many things about it, but the guy, Billy McFarland, who was the leader of all of this, first and foremost insisted that everything be filmed. And what's so bizarre about that is he was in this whole festival was a train wreck. And then he committed this scam afterwards. And why anybody would knowingly and encouraging oh, you need to film me doing all of these illegal things all this incriminating evidence is just so bizarre. And so this documentary just shows the unraveling of everything and how grandiose and just delusional this guy was. And the tickets for Fyre Festival, I think they were between 5,000 and 250,000. Mm-hmm. And people, there were supposed to be music, cabanas on the beach, private access to certain social media influencers, all these Instagram models were going to be there, and on and on. And
you said they paid between 500 or 5,000 and 250,000, right?
Yeah.
To attend. And then go ahead.
Yeah. And then, okay, so then they start, there's so much to the story. Then they start realizing the crew that's putting the festival together, they need more money. And so then they start, because they're this is never going to get off the ground. We didn't calculate right. So then they start emailing people saying, hey, you should buy these wristbands and put money on them. And so basically it's, things will be cheaper, or it'll just be easier for you to have the wristband. And then they were encouraging people to put at least $3,000 to $5,000 on this wristband that they would just swipe when they got there, right? And so people were, thousands of dollars are coming their way. And long story short, so all these people get to Bermuda, and the whole time the crew that's working on this wasn't being paid. And there were a lot of locals that weren't being paid. And everybody just thought, well, surely this guy's going to be able to pull it together, or he's going to cancel it. It wasn't really on anybody's radar that the guy was a scam artist. And so then the day of the concert or the festival comes, and all they had at this point was all of these FEMA disaster relief tents. And so it wasn't glamorous at all. It was the exact opposite. They had all these tents, people, they were soaking wet. They had cheese sandwiches. They had a lack of water, lack of bathrooms. It turned into this almost level of hysteria where people were panicking and rioting and just trying to get off the island, but it was a small island. So they didn't have the resources to get tens of, thousands of people off the island. And anyway, so that ends up going down. And as I'm watching it during the festival failure, I'm kind of thinking well, this guy is young. Maybe he was just overestimated his abilities, and obviously this isn't right, and he should refund all of them and whatnot. But I'm kind of thinking, why would you destroy your credibility? Why would you do this to yourself? Right? It was such a public failure. And then after he gets back to the United States, he starts up this website, and it was called something like VIP NYC, and takes all of the email addresses from the participants in the Fyre Festival, and then begins emailing them with, hey, discount tickets for Beyonce, or for Super Bowl or a Victoria's Secret fashion show. And then these people, not realizing it's him, start buying what they think are tickets to these events. And I mean, he knew, like, there were no tickets. He knowingly was scamming people out of thousands and thousands of dollars. So somebody finally confronted him and they're like, dude, you're going to go to jail. You know, this is all catching up with you. And he said, he's like, I'm not going to jail. And he's now in jail for 6 years. Yeah, good, right? For 6 years. But then he'll be out again. And it was interesting because when they were filming the documentary, all of the people, his staff and crew and locals and stuff, there were so many interesting things in that. And one of them was the look on their face, how they responded to it versus him. And they looked physically ill to their stomach, that they had participated in this scam, that they were out money, that they had participated in unknowingly scamming other people out of money. And versus Billy's response, which was total indifference and very much kind of just very superficial platitudes about the event. And at one point, he even said on camera, somebody had said, well, what is the Fyre Festival all about? And he says, we're selling a pipe dream to losers. Yeah.
Oh, so my God.
That's how he viewed people right away. And went on camera with that. Just there was no introspection of maybe I shouldn't say these things. It was just the arrogance, the grandiosity, the overestimating his own abilities, his lack of empathy, his lack of remorse, and his unwillingness to change. All he's doing is just getting better at covering up what he's already doing.
It's outrageous.
So I thought if anybody wants to see a documentary about sociopathic behavior in action, that's a good one.
But that's horrible. I can't even imagine why anybody would. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. You know?
Oh yeah, and he was knowingly scamming friends of his. I mean, it just the whole movie. Your jaw is just hanging open because you're like, what is the thought process behind all of this, and how do you just not care, and why? Why are you shooting yourself in your own foot? Why are you hurting other people like this?
And the fact that they made a movie out of it and using probably his own footage is kind of hilarious. Yeah. I hope he doesn't get any of that money.
Oh, he does. That was another part of it is he had negotiated with Hulu and Netflix, and I forget which one paid. I think it might have been Hulu for his interview, and they had paid quite a bit. But it was just like, this guy has always got an angle and he's always trying to get his.
Yeah. That's wow. That's crazy. So those of you who are here in the chat, let us know if you've seen the movie, what you thought about it, and anything else you want to know. And are you ready to jump into the chat?
Yes.
Okay. Oh no, it's a comment. Angela Morris says, I was going to watch this documentary last night, but I just finished the assassination of Johnny Versace. Oh yeah. She said that was too much narcissism in one day for her. I can relate. And VIP Kid said she watched the Netflix one and is about to watch the Hulu one next. Okay, very cool. Okay, Dark Wolf Knight wanted to know what a scapegoat was. I think our community here answered. Hey, Rhiannon. Here. The Fyre documentary, and this is from Camilla, and the Ted Bundy documentary both have charming people who can't tell the truth. There you go.
Yep. Actually, I wanted to add something about that. I haven't watched the Ted Bundy documentary for the same reason. I'm like, this is just too much for one weekend.
Yeah.
But, so often we talk about targets of these people being empaths or being just very normal, decent people. And I just wanted to bring up, I didn't realize this until recently, Ted Bundy had a stalker.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it was this woman who was obsessed with him. And she was, I don't know if she was a juror or if she was somebody in the courtroom, but he was so unnerved by it. And he said, funny. Which is wild because you wouldn't think that anything would rattle that guy. But he said, she keeps looking at me, something along the lines of like a wolf looks at lunch.
Wow.
And was trying to get things arranged to where she couldn't make eye contact with him. but he was visibly upset and rattled. And here he is in police custody, and he's a serial killer, and he was afraid of her. So this kind of stuff can happen to anybody. And so I just wanted to make that clear, because so often we think, oh, it's, it's just us, but no.
Yeah. I actually, I started to watch that, but then when my daughter was in the room, and the minute I turned it on, something, I thought, never mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to watch it later. Because I do want to know, because I'm interested in understanding people's minds, and but anyway, Dark Wolf Knight wanted to know what a scapegoat was, and I think that's been answered by our community here. So we'll let that one. But Lou says, day 35, no contact. I'm afraid to let him see my children, 5.5-year-old twins, as he is so untrustworthy and also a long haul trucker. So I have zero assurance that he will bring them back. Ooh. That's rough. Okay. She said help. Okay. So here's my suggestion. If you don't have anything in writing that says you have to let him see him, then don't. But if you do, be very careful, because you might be struggling with other legal issues if you don't. However, with that being said, if you haven't got that in writing yet, I would suggest asking your lawyer to write something into the custody papers. Like, there has to be depending on the situation, maybe a what was it called, Dana? Like a guardian ad litem, or somebody that supervises the visits, maybe, if that's a possibility. But if you don't have anything in writing, then I don't think he can do anything to you, except he could also take them, and it wouldn't be kidnapping. So be careful if he's on the birth certificate. Yeah. Dana, thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. And, I would talk to an attorney and kind of find out for sure, but yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Here's a comment from Angela, who says, Ted Bundy had many marriage proposals as well when he was in prison. Lots of murderers and rapists do, and I don't know why. There's
a certain type of woman or man that really, it's almost, I think it might even be there might be a name for it, where people are only interested in people who are incarcerated for different reasons. But what are your thoughts on that, Dana?
I think a lot of times the appeal is, I think this is more seen with violent men more so than violent women, but I think the appeal for a lot of women is it's a guy who's safe.
Yeah.
He's not going to cheat on you, which ironically, yes, he will, because he's, emailing and talking and schmoozing probably dozens of women to get money for commissary and all kinds of stuff. But they think, they see a picture, like with Chris Watts, right? Like they see a picture and like, oh, here's a, pretty good looking guy. Oh, and then it's that really malignant level of codependency of, yes, I understand him. He's a baby bird with a broken wing. My love can fix him. It breaks my heart that he's sitting in there all by himself, and nobody understands him like I do. And I can really relate to being all alone and being in a bad relationship. And so I'll reach out. And you see, like with Chris Watts, all of the different letters that women had written to him were all along the same lines. And they were kind of, the dynamic with him is very much, basically wanting a pen pal or wanting somebody that they could connect with. I don't know. It just strikes me as a lot of really, really lonely people that are driven to really destructive behavior. It's sad.
It really is. I've actually heard about, there's some kind of show called like Prison Wives or something like that, or I don't know what it's called, but basically what I've heard some of those ladies say is, one thing that I think is an overarching theme for these people that get involved with people in prison who they didn't know beforehand, like they meet them there, like whether they're high profile or not, is, well, they can't cheat on me, which apparently is not true. And, I'll always know where they are, and little weird stuff like that. And I think that these are a lot of times people who just can't imagine actually being in a real relationship, but they want to feel like they're in some kind of relationship. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe I definitely think there's a codependency factor, but a lot of them get scammed. They end up spending their money on these people. It's ridiculous. Anyway. Well,
and a lot of them, they get caught up, because even if they're contacting them first, if you're contacting a lot of these prisoners, they've got nothing but time. So they're writing these letters back and giving all kinds of attention and love bombing.
Yeah.
Baby, they're selling the fantasy. Baby, I love you. You're so amazing. Keep sending me pictures. Hey, I could really, man, it's so hard to, just get the basics up in here. Like if you can just send money, I could really just use a bag of Cheetos, or it's just so tough. And, I'm doing my time, but I'm thinking of you. And they are totally misreading this and thinking that these actions of intensity are sincerity, and then they're not. And then you see them, like that show Love After Lockup, then they get out, and then the guy is a thug.
Yeah.
And, then he starts going back to doing thug stuff. He's running around with other thugs, and he's doing, he's got other women he's texting, and it just slides right back into being the person that he was before he went to prison. And then they're shocked because they had this whole fantasy in their mind of, but I thought we were going to get out, and you had made me the apple of your eye. I thought that was going to continue, and you were going to straighten up, and that you were going to be the father to my child. You were going to be the husband that I needed, and Prince Charming, basically.
Yeah.
And then after they throw tens of thousands of dollars trying to make this fantasy real, then they tend to finally realize, if they're lucky, they finally realize, I've been scammed. I got to cut bait and drive on.
Yeah. Somebody I know in real life had that happen. And like the person, she was so into it, and the person got out, and they ended up physically assaulting her and stealing her car.
Wow.
I mean, and then she ended up calling the police or whoever he was supposed to report to. And then he was put back in, but it's just messed up. Anyway,
it's interesting too on that show Love After Lockup, what is it? I think it's the 90 Day Fiance show, because you have a lot of men and women overseas that strike up these relationships, and they want to come over, and it's the same thing. They're selling the fantasy basically in exchange for citizenship.
Yep. And
the people on the receiving end of it are just completely blinded by it, and they continue to fall for it. And it's what's also interesting about that is listening to what their friends and family have to say, because it tends to be very polarized. Half of like it is in any manipulative or abusive relationship. Half of them are like, this is a terrible idea. You're nuts. This person's obviously after your money and your citizenship, or your money and a place to crash.
Yeah.
And then the other half of them are like, well, but you never know. And maybe they've changed. Maybe this isn't a problem. And maybe this can work. And you never know. And it's just this level of like fantasy denial. And I hear these things, and it just makes me physically ill, because it's so hard to get out of that when you're getting all of this really dysfunctional advice from people who are rooting you on because they want to see you happy. But they're also waiting for that concrete proof that, yes, in fact, this person's scamming you. But if the only proof that we'll take that that's a problem is for us to lose our life savings, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I don't know how people do it. Oh, Teacher's VIP Kid says the man from Billy from the documentary wouldn't take any feedback and said so many of his partners warned him, and he did have enough time to troubleshoot, but he was stubborn and he wouldn't listen, which is a good comment. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that whole thing. I think I want to trust people in the world. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to do that as an individual, but I can't always. You have to just really, I mean, even when somebody calls my house from one of the companies that I've contracted with for some reason, I still make them prove they're really who they say they are if I don't recognize the number. You just can't always. Oh, wait, we got a new member. Who do we have here? Hello, Julie Reitmeyer, and welcome. Thank you for signing up as a member for the channel. If you go to your membership tab after the stream, you can find the secret link where your benefits will be found at queenbeing.com. Okay. And you'll be included in the next round of videos as well in the shout outs. Okay. Do you have a question pulled up for us?
Let's see. Somebody had asked something about, can being tangled up with a narcissist cause psychosis? And that was the gist of the question, but I'm trying to.
Oh, well, Could it? Maybe.
Oh, here's the question.
Okay.
Glitter Girl
Okay.
says, I've heard if you watch and learn about personality disorders, i.e. narcissism, etc., you can get psychosis. Thoughts?
I mean, I'll just say this. I'm relatively sane, and I've been learning about this for several years and learn about a little more every day. I don't think you could become psychotic from that. I think now, let me say this. My 11-year-old daughter, she will sometimes get, I had to stop her from watching certain people on YouTube because, and people who were kid creators, because they were negative and they were, suicidal, and they were like pushing this horrible, like, whether they meant to or not, she was like sort of absorbing whatever they were talking about. And so I had to stop her from watching them because it was causing her problems. So I think if you're a child, or if you're someone who isn't sure of yourself, you don't know who you are, maybe if you're, that impressionable that you would take on the qualities of the things you're hearing about. I don't know if that's an even proper way to say it. I know that sounds condescending, and I don't mean to, but I'm just trying to think of an example of someone I know who experienced something like that. I think anybody can be affected by anything if they allow themselves to. I mean, I've never heard of someone becoming psychotic because they learned about something, though. What about you, Dana?
Yeah, I think it's more so that when people that have undergone emotional and especially psychological abuse, who are already questioning their reality and, are they the problem? They're trying to figure out what is up and what is down, because they've gone through so much gaslighting and being blamed for having boundaries, being blamed for being abused. And so when they start learning about narcissism, it's very common where survivors are like, well, maybe that's me. Maybe I'm the narcissist. And it'll just spin your head for a loop, because then it makes you question everything again. And then there's also a part in healing where, as you're moving forward and you are learning more about all of this, you start looking around and you start seeing a lot of problematic people.
Yeah.
And then you start questioning your sanity of like, oh my God, are there narcissists around me everywhere?
Yeah.
Or what's going on? And that's more of just this waking up period.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody experiences that when they do wake up and they realize what's happening. I did. Did you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that went on for me because I didn't know what was going on. That went on for, I would say, probably about 2 years.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm making all this noise over here. Oh, wait, really quickly, let me welcome Michael John McCuskey to the channel membership. Thank you so much. And just like I said to the beautiful Julie, please go over after this stream to the members tab and get the link for Queen Being for your secret benefits. All right. Anyway, yeah. So wait a minute, Dana, tell me what you were saying. I got distracted when I was going to tell you something good. What was it? we were talking about.
Well, just kind of having your head spin and trying to make sense of all this. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, and here's the other thing. You can also take it, a lot of people here on YouTube not a lot of people, but some people have said they are not fond of my channel because I smile too much or I'm too happy or whatever. And I'm like, because I guess I should be sad, but I'm not, and I'm not going to pretend to be, because I was already for a long time, But my point is, when whoever you spend time around, and today we kind of spend time with YouTubers. I do too, not just as a YouTuber, but also watching other YouTubers. We might tend to pick up certain things, especially if we watch a lot of them. But I was going to say something that was actually more relevant to what you were saying, but I got distracted. I'm so sorry.
And here to add to that, Glenda was saying, she says, however, I've been told by my therapist that I need to be careful because if I am looking for something, I will find it. I finally found something that makes sense, and this reaction makes me doubt everything all over again. What do I do? Help, please. This is really difficult because if you have a therapist who's not familiar with emotional or psychological abuse, it can really, Richard Grannon refers to it as tertiary gaslighting, where you've got a therapist who's basically saying, the situation wasn't problematic, the way you viewed it was. Or let's examine some of your own behaviors. And they're not seeing the abuse for what it is. This is very difficult. This is one of the reasons it took me so long to find my way back to the road, because it's so difficult. You kind of pick up some clarity here and there, and then over time you assemble the puzzle. But if you look up the definitions for emotional and psychological abuse, and then see, it really either fits your situation or it doesn't. And then how do you get back? How do you get grounded in that? Is one of my favorite things from the book, Psychopath Free. He talks about the value of getting, he calls it a constant. And it's basically, in the book, he talks about it as his cat, where he feels very grounded and safe and secure around his cat. I would encourage you to extend that to another person, whether you know them or not. So this is a person that you don't feel crazy around, where you feel calm, collected, their actions have shown you that they're trustworthy, you feel safe, you're not second guessing their intentions, you're not feeling nervous or anxious or unhinged. Those feelings are not normal. It can be normal when you're first out, when you feel that way about everybody. But if you can go back and think, for example, my constant is my brother. And I know I don't second guess his intentions. He's a good, solid guy. I've known him forever. And so when I start feeling like somebody took a magnet to my internal compass, and I'm doubting, I become introspective. Is it me? Is it them? What's going on? I don't know. All of that mental anguish, all of that confusion, I think, how do I feel around my brother? And it's like, okay, I don't feel this way around him. And I also, now it's been many years, I don't feel this way around the vast majority of people. Yeah. I only feel this around people that are crazy making, that are manipulative and abusive.
And what that is for people who aren't, for me anyway, I think that's a really good way for anyone who's been taught to doubt themselves to really tune back into their intuition. It's a really great exercise. I mean, great idea. Yeah.
Because really at the end of the day, we had discussed this on my channel quite a bit, and it was such a good discussion topic, was something along the lines of like, how do you know, like, what is truth, right? Like, what is reality? How much of it is our individual perception? And the truth is, we all perceive reality different. We don't need to try to find the absolute truth about a situation. All you need to know is if something is nourishing for you or if something is toxic for you. If it's not for you, that's all the reality that you need to know. And it just means that now, if this situation isn't for you, you've got a coworker who you just don't feel safe around, and they're gossipy, they're sabotaging, this kind of stuff. You don't need to figure out, are they a narcissist? Are they a sociopath? Are they this? Are they that? Do they really mean what they're doing? Do they really know? You don't need all that. All you just need to know is, this isn't working for me. And then taking action, corrective action on how you feel.
Exactly. Yeah.
It takes so much of the pressure off, realizing like, you don't have to figure out another person. You just have to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and then adjust your response appropriately.
If something feels yucky or bad to you, it probably is. Trust yourself. Trust your gut. Absolutely.
Yeah. There is no petty issue. There is no, if it's an issue for you, it's an issue, like, period, end of story. Other people, that's the thing. Other people might say, oh, well, they were just joking, or they had that people can pull you off course in all kinds of ways. But if you're grounded enough in your reality to be like, well, you know what, maybe they were joking. I didn't find it funny. Right. It's not okay with me. I don't want to be joked with like that. I feel like they're being critical and I'm feeling bullied. Yeah. And so
it's okay to say it.
Yeah. Like, I don't like jokes like that. So, or whatever the situation might be.
Absolutely. Agree. Welcome, Shauna, to the channel membership. Happy to have you here. Okay. And let me see here. So I was just about to pull this from a question from Nicole. I'm sorry, Nicola. She says she's 5 months no contact. She has a new supply already. And the new supply was already one of his friends. And she's obviously the crazy ex now. We know how that is. She said they put the relationship status on, then took it off 6 hours later. Why would they take it off? And it only got 23 likes. Okay. First of all, why are you still looking at their social media? Let me just put that out there. That's torturing yourself for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, who knows? It might have been a mind game. Maybe they're not even really together. Maybe they did it to upset you or get some kind of message across to you. But please, Nicola, listen carefully. Please just block them and start taking care of yourself and loving yourself and working, I should say, accepting yourself as you are and accepting that that person's toxic to your life. So try to, my advice is to don't dwell on it and just move forward in a healthier way. And don't torture yourself so much by dwelling on it. I know people do it. I did it too in a different way, but we can't do it. It's not healthy for us. Ooh, sorry. So that's what I'm going to say. Dana, thoughts?
Yeah, I think when we see behavior like this, and I know, like Angie's saying, it can be so hard to detach and to just block them across the board and to not go back and visit. But you have to remind yourself, there's a meme that's floating around out there. It's hilarious. It's with Yoda. And it says something like, to your ex's Facebook page you go, pain you will find.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Like there's not, whatever answers or closure or curiosity that you're looking to satisfy, that you're not going to find anything there but pain.
Exactly.
And if you keep reminding yourself of that and just don't entertain it, you have to just develop the discipline to not go there. And if you do come across, let's say friends or family tell you about, oh, well, they're doing this and they're doing that. And you see the dysfunction for what it is. Like, oh, he's, this was the girl, he said it was a friend and that he was lying and then now he's cheating and now they put something up and then they took it down. If you see these people, these manipulators as crazy makers, when they do things that are crazy making, it stops becoming such a shock.
True.
Because of course, a crazy maker is going to act crazy making. That's what they do. We should be surprised when they have normal, reasonable, solutions-oriented, adult-appropriate behavior.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Then you have to be suspicious. In fact, I just did
valid point. Yes.
Yes. I just did a video about this called something about the narcissist being nice, because it's not ever for.
Yeah. It's just another level of their game.
Yes.
They've leveled up.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying.
Yeah. A couple of comments that are, and I know I'm not trying to block you out in comment, so please, but let me say a couple of comments back to the sociopath thing with the beginning of the video where we talked about the Fyre Festival. Mo Cowboy says, oddly, sociopaths and psychopaths can view jail time as the cost of doing business, which I think is interesting. And then Angela Morris adds, it's interesting how far narcissists can get knowing what they're doing is wrong and the people around them knowing as well. She said confidence and leadership is so much more influential than facts. And I think that's very interesting. And I think there's something to that. So anyway, thoughts?
Yep.
Ooh,
I agree.
I just rolled down really far in the chat. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. Okay. Do you have a question for us or a comment?
I've
got one if you don't.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. From Judai, she says, how do I learn to let go of escaping my father's narcissistic control? And my brother is still prisoner of his emotional abuse. How do I learn to stop feeling guilty about the fact that I can't help my brother? Ooh, that's really difficult. I don't recall how old your brother is, Judai, but I'll tell you this. You can only, if he's an adult, you can only tell him what you know. And if he's, but a lot of times, people who are codependent like that, they will literally like defend that person fiercely and their relationship. And I think that's kind of the Stockholm syndrome thing. And I'm going to just really quickly, there's some movie I saw where this woman was kidnapped and her husband was like trying to find her. And like 10 years later, he finally found her. And it's a long story. Like he found her wedding ring in a pawn shop or something. He tracked her down and he killed the guy that kidnapped her and released her and all these other women he had kidnapped in this situation. And then she turned on him and killed him on the way out. And because she was so Stockholm syndromed, she was so deep into Stockholm syndrome. So, which is trauma bonding,
Yeah.
So if your brother is trauma bonded with your father, which I would suspect he might be, it's a lot harder for him to let go. So you can just give him information and be patient, which sucks, I know. As for yourself, I found writing a letter to be really helpful, saying all the things I wasn't able to say. And I've talked about that in many videos. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it, but to release those emotions and stuff. And then I didn't send the letter, of course, and I forgave the person in the letter, even though they didn't deserve it. But there are a lot of different, techniques that I think the most important thing is to work through the emotions around it, and then to work toward letting go. And in those, those cases where you feel overwhelmed by thoughts, pattern interrupts can help. But Dana, what are your thoughts on letting go of father's narcissistic control, and any thoughts about the brother that she's worried about?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think pretty much everybody that has a narcissist or a sociopath for a parent really struggles with this, because generally if they have siblings, there's always one, over time, there's one that sees it for what it is, and then there's one or more that don't.
Right. And
it can be exhausting to try to get everybody, drag them to the light and get them to see it for what it is. It's
almost like every man for himself.
Yeah. And the guilt that she's experiencing, there's a term for it. It's survivor guilt.
That's right.
It's when we get out of a situation and other people don't, whether that's a hostage situation, a house fire, an abusive relationship, whatever. And I think like Angie was saying, all you can do is just kind of give some resources and then let it go. I think it also helps to kind of soften the blow, because people can get so defensive if we start using terms like narcissist or sociopath, or even abuse. Things like these kinds of terms are really heavy and loaded. To back it up a little bit and kind of switch gears and have the conversation more in terms of boundaries, standards, deal breakers, and appropriate behavior. And that it's just because a person's your parent doesn't give them the right to treat you terribly. And it doesn't mean that you somehow forever are indebted to them for bringing you into this world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's hard. It's hard to fully embrace, like, we only have control over ourselves. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Do you have a question for us yet? Are you still?
I'm here. Let me scroll down. I'm still looking.
Okay. I have a comment from Mo Cowboy.
Okay.
He says, I still have episodes where I want to believe the narcopaths in my life were acting out of naivete, not knowing the way they were destroying others and themselves. He says, for even Ted Bundy. And actually, okay, listen, I think there are some narcissists who are like on the lower end of the spectrum, who are just very immature and thoughtless and careless, and maybe aren't considering the damage they're doing because they're so focused on self. But I think the more intelligent they are, the less likely that's a possibility, if that makes any sense. Because I think the further up the scale you get, going towards psychopath and sociopath, I think you're going to have highly intelligent and very calculating people. And those are the ones that are the most dangerous, of course. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Dana?
I think, I guess for me, I tend to just go back to, like, what is the base amount of information that we need to know in order to take protective action or to move forward. And the reality is, it doesn't matter if they didn't know the harm that they were doing, or it's intentional, or it's because of a bad childhood or a bad day, or because of their ex, or because it was reactive abuse, or because it either works for you or it doesn't. Yeah. And if you asserted yourself and said, hey, this is not okay. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Then all we are left with is just walking away. And I think really shifting the focus onto what works for you, instead of trying to analyze and dissect another person, it just takes so much of the pressure off.
Yeah.
Because absolutely. We don't need to know. It doesn't matter what their intentions are. It's still going to hurt you at the end of the day. We've had this conversation before, but, like, it's sort of like having, for example, with my grandmother, she had Alzheimer's. And when she lived with us, my mom had moved her out of her house because she kept leaving the stove on. She was going to burn down the house. And we had her for a while. My mom finally had to place her in a home. And then she eventually came back to us when she was completely bedbound. But we distanced ourselves from her because she would have killed us all. had she continued to leave the stove on. It wasn't to punish her. It wasn't because we didn't love her. We had to take self-protective action, and we had to help her protect her from herself.
Yeah.
So there was no choice. So taking protective action is, you know, it doesn't matter the intentions. It doesn't matter how you feel about them. It doesn't matter. Like, you've got to do what you've got to do, you know, or there's multiple victims involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm with you 100%. Camilla said, what's the best way to treat codependency? She thinks it's the root of her. She said, I think it's the root of my issue with narcissists, but fixing it seems daunting. And I will just say this from a very high level. I think you have to find, you know, identify the core wound that you have. Where did it come from? Where did it start? Usually in childhood. And then you have to really change your perception and you first, you have to accept yourself as you are, and then you have to accept the situation and all that good stuff. But ultimately, it's about learning how to see yourself differently, perceive yourself in a way that you were never taught to perceive yourself, as a whole person who deserves happiness and love and all of these things. And the more that you work toward complete self-acceptance and eventually self-love, you know, and as you work through the issues of codependency and understand the logical facts and all the things that go with it, then, you know, and this is self-treating, of course, this is not something you're doing, you know, if you're with a therapist, it's a whole other thing. But at that point, when you understand yourself, this is what worked for me, and when you recognize your value as a person, suddenly everything changes, and it begins, you start to heal, and you start to realize that you can be independent, and you can be, you know, you don't need to be dependent on other people in emotional ways or whatever. So there's a lot more to it. Dana, thoughts?
Yeah, I think something that can help is to identify, to kind of put a face to the monster. If you can identify these different behaviors that are kind of contributing to our vulnerabilities, that are where you're finding yourself in these toxic relationships or friendships over and over again, that then at least you have a direction as far as what you need to address and what you need to work on. And that can be really difficult. Probably the main book out there for codependency is The Codependent No More by Melanie Beatty. And I will tell you, I've read that book 3 times and I've gotten nothing out of it.
Yeah.
And so I know I might be unique in that, but it just, none of it resonated with me. And so it can be, the point is, it can be really difficult to find information that resonates with you with this. And it's also tough to know what behaviors we need to work on, because we all have blind spots to our own behavior. And I think that's where it can become so daunting, because as you go down this road, it's this continual realization of, oh my God, I didn't realize that was a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I was caretaking instead of caregiving. I didn't realize that I was putting other people's wants and needs ahead of my own.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I'd had a series of one-sided relationships in my life where I was a nurse or a teacher or a social worker or a parent to other people.
And I think that's where the unconditional self-acceptance comes in, because when you stop judging yourself so much, you can see those things. You cannot see those things if you're stuck in reaction mode. And so, like, I like to, you know, I like to be aware of things and not judge myself for those things, right? So, like, you know what I mean? It has been tremendously huge, and going no contact for me was a big start of letting go of being a codependent person. It was a big start because I was able to, and I'm talking about with my original narcissist, not the one that I divorced. that happened before I realized what I was dealing with. And when I was 35 years old, I went no contact with my ON, my original narcissist. I just made that up. ON. Anyway, and that was a huge, like, that was a big turning point in my own personal evolution. And then I was able to identify all the things, and the unconditional self-acceptance, it's the thing. You have to stop beating yourself up. You have to be like, okay, I'm okay with who I am in this moment, even if I want to change, you know, but you still have to accept yourself in the moment for all the things, even if you want to change some of them, you know, just be like, well, this is who I am right now, and this is okay. And when you can, like, be calm enough and relaxed enough. I don't know if relaxed is the word, aware enough, self-aware enough to see things that are wrong with you, accept them, and either fix them or make, modifications in your life for them, then it's okay. For example, I space out a lot. And so when I'm doing streams or on calls with clients, I'm always holding this thing in my hand. It helps me stay focused. Stupid, but it works for me. It's a modification I made. You know what I mean? Little things and big things. I mean, it's a thing. Okay.
Yeah, and actually, real quick, maybe a more tangible way to get your teeth around the concept of codependency. Here's 2 books that I thought very insightful. There is one, it's called Boundaries, and it's by Adeline Birch, I believe her name is. It's a very quick read. You can read it in a few hours. She really spells out the difference between problematic boundaries and healthy boundaries. That's a great book. The other one is Codependency for Dummies. It's just part of the For Dummies series. Terrible title given the topic, but fantastic book. That book it's so meaty, it'll take you really weeks to get through it and fully digest it. And also, I really think any work by Pia Melody, she's got YouTube videos on there. Another challenge that we all, I think, tend to have when we're starting to kind of go down this rabbit hole is to unpack a lot of this very kind of clinical language, or what people tend to refer to as psychobabble. So there's a lot of terms when you're reading about this where it can just be confusing, because it's like, I don't know what you're saying when you're talking about like wounded inner child and, all of this stuff. It can feel complicated. So I guess just realize that's normal, and realize with time, you might have to go back and read a few of these books or videos a few times.
Yeah.
For it to sink in. Yeah.
And if you go to queenbeing.com/glossary, there's a huge glossary there of all the terms. So check it out. It's free. Anyway. Yeah. Good points. Okay. Do you have a question for us?
No, I lost it, but there was one, and I just wanted to mention the point about, oh shoot, I totally lost that question. I'm so sorry. One of the biggest things in healing that I think, if anybody, two things I think everybody needs to really take away in order to fully heal is you've got to be able to get to the place where you can understand when you're being mistreated and when you're experiencing behavior that you aren't okay with.
Yeah, good point.
That takes time, but until you get to that level of centeredness, you're going to keep finding yourself with problematic people, because you're lacking that ability to be self-protective for whatever reason. You grew up in an abusive home, you've been gaslighted, you've been denied your own reality, whatever it is, but that's a very fundamental part of who you are. And the second point, and the good news with this, is it's always there.
Yeah.
So tuning into your intuition and listening to what's for you and what's not for you. This isn't about kind of building anything new. It's about basically stripping away all of the garbage that's been put on us from either parents or society or religion or exes or you name it.
Yeah.
It's all of these problematic messages. You've got to just strip it away and find your authentic self. And then you can navigate the world effectively.
It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think for me, like, I think I've talked about this before, but when I did like have the wake up moment where I kind of started to recognize what I was dealing with, I went through repeated and constant, like, redetermining of belief or opinions, because I had to suddenly recognize all the things that I just assumed were true, that I was told were true by the person that was a narcissist in my life, who I knew since childhood, since birth, actually. And I had to refigure it all out. Like, do I really believe that? It was a whole process. And so it took a while, and I still have my moments, but it's been a little bit of time now. So that's helpful. Yeah, good points. Mo Cowboy said that a woman married Ted Bundy in prison and had a daughter with him.
That kind of stuff just makes me
Oh,
see red. It's like, okay, you want to mess up your life, go for it. You want to marry a serial killer? Fantastic. But tie your tubes.
please.
It just makes me so angry that this stuff goes on. And I really feel that people that are violent criminals like this, that they shouldn't be able to get love letters in the mail, that they shouldn't be able to get money for commissary,
Or
that they
conjugal
shouldn't be able to
visits.
get conjugal visits. It's just, no, like you're sitting in jail because you've done stuff wrong. It shouldn't
Right.
be comfortable in here.
Right. Exactly.
Ah,
Exactly. That's terrible. And why would that, like,
to me, having a child with a serial killer is probably one of the most emotionally damaging things that you could do to a kid right out of the gate. And now that kid's got to make peace with the fact that half of them is Ted Bundy. Like, how does that mess? I mean, my goodness.
I can't imagine.
Awful.
I can't imagine. There can't be anything positive to that except for maybe, a reality show. I don't know. I mean, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, what benefit can it have to be the dog? Because then there's the possibility of the DNA issue, because there are a lot of nurture versus nature things. But yeah.
Well, and just having to work through that and kind of figure out if they're a normal, decent person, making peace with how can that be when half of me is evil.
Right.
And kind of having to navigate and build up this a positive sense of self. It would just be a lot to really work through. Yeah. So that's just not cool.
Agreed.
Oh.
Hello, mental hilarity, and thank you for being a channel member. Okay, apparently they were having some trouble with buffering. I think that might be done now. Okay. Do you have a question pulled up or no?
I know.
Okay. Crystal Gates said she was with a covert malignant narcissist, very anger-raged. She said, I'm 3 months post narcissist and malignant trauma bond. And I think she was just telling us because I don't see a question. Oh, wait. She said, I don't want to be a people pleaser anymore. Okay. That I can understand. Yeah. And oh, wow. This is weird. Okay. Anyway, so what I would say, I think I misunderstood a comment that somebody wrote, but now I just understood it. So I'm better now. Lisa, I'm just going to tell you, Lisa Marie wrote, these women need a lot of mental help themselves. And I'm like, is she talking about us? But then I realized she wasn't. Okay. Moving right along. This is what happens when you roll back.
You might be right. I don't know.
We might.
Yeah, we might.
Anyway. Okay. So Crystal, to a lot of the things we talked about today, people pleasers tend to be codependents, but it starts with boundaries and letting, I think starting with simply setting boundaries and being like, well, okay, for example, maybe you only want to, you don't want to work overtime on the weekend and your boss comes up and says, hey man, overtime this weekend, and you don't have to by your contract or whatever. I don't know. And, at that point, that's a really good time to set boundaries and go, well, you know what? I'm really sorry. I've already got plans. I can't do it this weekend, whatever. Or if your, narcissistic mother, demands that you come over and change a light bulb at 3 a.m. because she just can't go to the bathroom without it. Maybe you tell her to get a flashlight and you go back to sleep. I mean, little things, but setting boundaries is the first step, and it's uncomfortable when you have to learn how to set boundaries. Setting boundaries in general can be uncomfortable, but especially if you've always just given and never set a boundary that you were able to maintain. And so you have to be willing to be uncomfortable for a minute in order to get the longer term benefit of not being a people pleaser, if that makes any sense. Dana, I know you've got some good thoughts on this. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different shifts that we have to make. But like I was saying before, the good thing is all of the stuff is already within you. It's about uncovering who your authentic self. And a lot of people with boundaries, there's such a struggle with this because it can feel like so much work. And initially, I think it really is. And this kind of, because you're learning something new and you're applying something new. And none of us, start off at the finish line. Like there's,
right.
So it just takes a lot of continual work and then examining like, basically, did I get the result I wanted? And if so, yes, if not, why? And continuing adjusting and applying. But boundaries, and some people feel really confined by boundaries, but the reality is boundaries help you to be more of what you already are. It's when you're saying yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no.
Yep.
And it's knowing, it goes back to the getting that core of yourself where you understand what's for you and what's not for you. And a lot of this stuff is really, it's so intertwined with developing a healthy self-esteem, and really in a nutshell, just realizing that you have value and that it's not some Herculean stretch to expect to be treated, to expect, not graciously given by somebody else, but expect to be treated with dignity and respect by the people in your life. These are that's just the basics.
Yeah.
So, and to not be tolerant of any mistreatment like that.
That's right. Yeah.
And Kimberly had she sums this up so well. She says, if your motivation in relationships is fear, obligation, or guilt, you are codependent.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
It is. And, on that same line, I remember when I was still in people pleaser mode, I literally would feel like I would rather make myself miserable than make someone else remotely annoyed for a minute or sad or angry. And so I would bend over backward to just make everybody around me feel good. And I still do that a little bit, but only for people who return the favor. You know what I'm saying? So like, I will be the sweetest person ever, as long as you're equally kind to me, or relatively speaking. Oh, sorry. I just apologized to my computer. Anyway, speaking of, anyway, but now I've gotten to the point where I've learned how to, gray rock and not, if I set my boundary, I do my thing. And if they continue to harass or bother me, I just go like this, watch.
That's good. So I'll know if I ever see that face from you. There's a problem. Okay.
That's the thing.
Good to know.
Okay. Anyway, okay.
But you know what you're saying about confrontation? I think this is one of these things. I did a series on codependency. There's not that many videos on it because I need to finish it. It's called something like Red Flags of Codependency. And many of the realizations that I had in this is I never thought of myself as a people pleaser. I thought of myself as really go with the flow. And I didn't.
I did too, a little bit, but
yeah, I saw all of my behavior in a very positive light. And I didn't see how being caring and compassionate and kind of continually being there for other people and kind of this overgiving and continually forgiving behavior could possibly be a problem. I was like, isn't this what we're all supposed to be doing? Yeah. And because that's what made me a good nurse. So I had a lot of, accolades for being that way. And so it was really difficult for me to realize, to connect that to, these are all signs of either very blurred or non-existent boundaries.
Yeah.
And I was very resistant to that. When people would mention that, I'd get defensive and just be like, well, no, maybe you're just a jerk. Like, I'm just compassionate. I just understand this stuff better because I've worked in mental health for so long. And so therefore I'm just more compassionate because I'm in it. And it's like, no, no, you're not. You're
right. But people
stuff to work out.
Our society almost pushes us to be selfless sometimes.
Oh, totally.
And so, and this is true for everyone, but especially women, and especially if you have the nerve to have a child. But any women in general, be selfless, but men too. But I think it's pushed for women more, and all good points that you made there. Yeah. So you don't have to be exactly what someone else tells you to be, and it's okay to have your own opinion about that. I'm throwing this in here because for me, that was I grew up believing that I was wrong because I was myself. And even, so when I wasn't myself, I was right. I mean, it was never, I could not fit into the mold that was created for me. And that made a lot of people mad. So
it's like you're only accepted if you fit into their mold. And we do come to that realization in time of, oh my gosh, wait a minute. If I'm only accepted for being somebody that I'm not, then I've lost myself.
Yeah.
And how to reclaim that. But and all of this stuff is an ongoing challenge that you're going to be faced with every day. And I still struggle with conflict and being assertive in certain situations. And it's uncomfortable.
It is.
Confrontation and these kinds of things. And so, you know, like you'll have your own set of stuff that you struggle with and your own set of stuff that it'll just click. You'll read it and you're like, oh, boom, done. Now you get it. And that part's kind of, you know, fixed itself. So
exactly. Yeah. And we are running out of time. So I would like to, maybe if you want to pick one more each. I mean, this has gone so fast. I could sit here all day, but unfortunately I have a call in a bit. But I do want to say two things really quick. Mo Cowboy said that after he said it was rainy and overcast, and then he listened to me when he came in for dinner, and right after that he looked out the window and saw beautiful bright sunshine. I like that. Yeah. Okay. That was nice, right? And then one more thing, Shauna said, Angie, she's one of our new channel members today. She said, Angie, you've been a godsend. Thank you for all that you've done. And thank you. And she went on, but I'm just going to say, Shauna, that's an amazing compliment. Thank you. And thank you for being here and part of the Spanily. Did you have a question?
I have a fantastic question.
Awesome.
Not just a question, a fantastic question. This is from E-Rock Freedom, who says, okay, well, what does it mean when people refer to projecting one's good qualities onto a narcissist or toxic person?
Ooh, me, can I say?
Go for it.
Okay. Okay, we do that. We do, because we are not, I keep touching it. We are nice, compassionate people. We are people who care about other people, as we just discussed. You know, most people who are codependent or whatever you want to call it. I like to say empath, because even though not all empaths are with narcissists, I'm not going to go into it all, but an empath is a positive way to identify someone who cares about other people and how they feel. Okay. But the question was what now? Oh yeah. Okay. We project our good qualities onto them by assuming that they have the same kind of compassion that we have, or that they have the same good intentions that we have. And that allows us to twist things in our head, and it allows us to sort of justify their bad behavior. They just had a bad day, or they didn't really mean to hit me in the face and knock me down the stairs. It just happened because, you know, their arm slipped. I mean, that's an extreme version, but thoughts, Dana?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a thing, I think a lot of people subscribe to this point of view and they don't even realize it, is we all kind of tend to walk around having this kind of one world view, that how we think about things is how other people think about things. And our moral compass is their moral compass. And this is so our society tends to really reinforce that. And until we come crashing into somebody who is really problematic, and then it rattles us and we're like, oh my God. I had a friend of mine after the first sociopathic guy I dated, she said, boy, Dana, it's so interesting that you value realness so much, and yet you got tangled up with a person who was so fake.
Yeah.
And that really rocked me to my core, because that's exactly what it was. And I was like, how did this not come across my radar, that he was Prince Charming and it was all manipulative, it was all a lie. And that was I assumed, because I'm not out there scamming and lying and cheating and running around and deceiving. It's not even on my radar of things to do. And it was for him. And so I wasn't seeing things clearly. So that's what it is to see behavior for what it is, not to project our interpretation onto it.
Yeah. It's tough, but
yeah,
as you learn about things, as you learn about the toxic nature of other people sometimes, and you learn about all the signs and the symptoms and all the things, what I have found is that it's a lot easier to identify behaviors as, okay, that's gaslighting. Okay, this is that. And it's useful, because when you can see that, okay, this person's just gaslighting me, that takes the power out of that. And it also, for me, looking at this situation logically, and putting my emotions aside for a minute so I could maneuver through it to get out of it, huge. And then dealing with the emotions. I mean, you're going to have to deal with the emotions, but if you're stuck, that's a helpful thing to do. Look at it from logic. Go ahead.
A quick aside to that. I heard a new term the other day, just on the internet somewhere, and it was called pilot lighting. And it's basically when a person is in a relationship and they're having all of these like, quote unquote friends or all of these weird squirrely relationships. It's like they're turning the pilot on. So they're kind of starting these other little fires. They're just kind of keeping them going. And I love that because when you see that behavior, it becomes so clear of like, oh yeah, that person's totally pilot lighting. Like all these people are on the back burner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When you have a term for it, things make so much more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, you guys, I'm so sorry because I want to sit here and talk all day. I love talking with Dana and with all of you. But unfortunately, my schedule does not allow it. So let me just say this. As always, I appreciate you being here. The chat should stay open for another 30 minutes or so. Feel free to stay and hang out. Dana is at Thrive After Abuse, thriveafterabuse.com. Here on YouTube, Thrive After Abuse, all over the internet. So go make sure you subscribe to her channel because every other Tuesday we're there for this session, and then we alternate back here. And just a little sneak note for you all, we're working on something new for you. We might be working on 2 streams per week, one focused on, what is it, Dana? It's
basically thriving.
Yeah.
I think the goal is for us to try a bunch of things and to just do a bunch of things and to just share our journey.
See what happens.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, everybody, big hugs and love to you. I'm sorry that I can't get to every question, but I will try to be popping in tomorrow. Well, I can't lie. I might not be here tomorrow, but I'm going to try. Otherwise, you can hit up. We'll see you soon. All right, I got to go.
Okay, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay, bye.
All right. Okay, bye.